That was the opening clap. It signified.
Participate in that?
No, no, definitely not. No, you just looked a little startled by it.
You hadn't failed yet.
I was looking, I could see the camera in that one. I was looking at you and
Praise God. Well, welcome to the Jesus Cartel. This is how we start. The opening clap is one of significant power and awe, some people say. I think that has a lot to do with who's clapping. Not all claps are created equal. And so that might be our T-shirt of the week. Yep.
Or Andrew is the head clapper.
Yeah.
consider me awed.
Yeah. Praise God. So, Ryan, welcome to the Jesus Cartel. For anybody who doesn't know, this is Mr. Ryan Kincaid. He's going to be our guest today. And, we're super excited to have you here. What's been going on with you lately?
Man, a little bit of everything. It's an honor to be here, obviously. Been a while, been waiting on this invitation. A little bit of everything. We just got done with our Fresh Start banquet. So the past month, or really 2 months, have been full force on that. Have some intakes and stuff taking place for our women's facility this week. So we got a lot of that going on. As far as family and stuff goes, man, we've just been preparing for some trips coming up.
Yeah.
I went and visited my parents in Lafayette about a week ago. And then we have another little trip coming up shortly. And in the midst of all of that, my stepson has been taking vacations about every week. So
yes.
he's enjoying the summer.
Yes, Carter, the king of chocolate milk, they call him. And, man, that's really awesome. And congratulations, by the way. I heard Clay was telling me you had set a record at the banquet for the longest 15-minute testimony. And so
I put a lot of effort in it. And so it's always good to see something that you're pouring into really get the results that you get.
Oh, man, no, you did a fantastic job, man. You really did. Clay, what's been going on with you, man?
Well, before I tell you about me, I'll tell you a little bit more about Ryan. So Ryan did have a very lengthy testimony at the Fresh Start graduation. And one of the results of that was the very next day, this lady that I've known a long time that's, grew up in our community and stuff, she called and said, hey, we've been having some issues with our son and, didn't know exactly what to do. And, haven't lost complete hope or whatever, but heard Ryan's testimony the other night. And man, God just gave us a new perspective on it. And so Ryan was able to meet with that young man and speak into his life. And so that is already an immediate benefit for the kingdom of God. For Ryan's testimony the other night was getting to speak into a young man's life that he might not would have met any other way, So, just awesome the way God brings those things together. As far as my life, man, absolutely nothing. I've been bored, hadn't had enough to do, and really just looking for something to do.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to have a golf tournament coming up, but the rain has just kind of destroyed all of our hope of that. But, with rain also comes opportunity. Okay. And because of the rain this morning, we got a visit from a good friend of ours, and Mr. Kyle Broussard from Broussard and Ely Farms. And, talking about maybe even sponsoring the show. And so, opportunities. You got to find the silver lining in everything.
Yeah, so isn't that Broussard and Ely Be Better?
Yeah, the B and the E, Be Better. Yeah, absolutely. And Roy helps him out there.
Yes.
And so, yeah, man, it was exciting to get to visit with Kyle for a little bit and just get to hang out. And Roy, if you're listening too, man, if you get any breaks in all of the labor that you're having to do, man, I hope that you get an opportunity to listen to this.
Yeah, you don't get nearly as many breaks when you're the hand.
No. No, absolutely not.
I do see Kyle a lot more often.
That's true. That's true. Yep. No, that's awesome. So last week we had an episode on politics, which was, if I'm going to be completely honest, not my favorite episode. It's nothing wrong with the episode, but just the subject matter in general is always difficult, and it's such a polarizing topic, politics. Anytime you get into it, man, with every statement you make, and it may teeter-totter the whole time, but with every statement you make, half the world hates you, and half the world loves you. And then you make the next statement and it can switch just that fast. And so it's hard to even enjoy an episode like that. And so, I guess I would say last week's episode wasn't really to enjoy. I think that, a lot of what we do at the Jesus Cartel is try to pour into people. Sometimes those are joyful conversations. Sometimes they're difficult conversations. and last week's was difficult because we just had to kind of dig our heels into some realities. And there are some things that we all hope for in life, but then there's reality. And reality often doesn't look as pretty as we have drawn it up in our mind. And the political landscape of things right now, no matter which side you're on, it's just not pretty. It's not fun. And so last week's episode was difficult. And I just want to say for anybody who was viewing it that had a hard time with it, me too. I also didn't enjoy having to dig into some of the things we're having to dig into. But
and we call it the political episode, but you know how it is with us. We're going to talk about several things
Sure.
at one time. And I've had a lot of positive comments from that. I just left the Women's Center, and a young lady was talking about, because she goes, hey, when we were listening to Jesus Cartel, and all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh, what did I say?
yeah, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. And she goes, I said, what episode? She goes, last week. And I was like, here we go. But she was talking about the part that we were talking about of, Christian men walking this thing out and who we look up to and who we can receive from and those kind of different things. And she said that part meant a lot to her. But she also said that she wished a lot more leaders could hear that because how a person carries himself, whether he's obese like we were talking about last week or, or promiscuous or, whatever it is, that it really does affect the other people greatly. And so we ended up spending the last 15 minutes at the Women's Center this morning talking about scenarios to where Christian men, succumb to temptation and what it could affect. And just use a scenario of the effects of that. And it's great. So I just, she hopes and I hope that people in leadership roles and Christians all around would understand the responsibility that we do have and not take those things for granted because people are watching and it does affect other people than just yourself.
I'm glad you brought that up because it gave an opportunity to tighten a couple of bolts real quick. And I want to start by asking Ryan this question. Ryan, when you're talking to someone about any manner of conversation as it pertains to trying to receive wisdom, right? Any sort of advice, any sort of counsel, and this person is an unrepentant sin, not, hey, I've been struggling with something, but I'm trying to, seek the Lord. Just clear, unrepentant sin. How does that conversation land with you?
Man, lucky for you, it's something very recent.
Oh, praise God.
The matter before we actually walked in this building. I think the number one thing, you have to make sure that you're coming at them from a perspective and a point of love. I think that's first and foremost. Because, like you said, this person isn't necessarily trying to turn away from it. They're not ready to let go of it yet.
Yeah.
And so what that kind of points towards is they're not at the point where they believe that they're better off without it.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard place to meet somebody at, where somebody's holding on to something and they're not ready to let go. That you can get a lot of fight from that. So I make sure that whenever I speak to them, I take the old adage, no one cares what you have to say until they know you care. Make sure that they understand that you care. Make sure that they understand you're coming at them from a perspective of love so that they can see, hey, look, I understand what's going on. I love you. That's why we're having the conversation.
Absolutely.
That's a hard conversation to have with somebody.
Always.
Heck, I've been through that 10 years of my life, where people who genuinely cared about me greatly saw things that I shouldn't be doing that were harming me, but I wasn't ready to get rid of them.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to let those things go yet. For whatever reason, I just didn't want to listen to them. I knew those people loved me. I knew they wanted what was best for me. But my stubbornness and not wanting to let go of things that I was considering pleasurable at the time, got in the way of that.
Yeah. So I think that that's an excellent piece of advice for anybody who's trying to approach somebody like that. So that same person that you're reaching out to, would he or she, in their current state, have any ability to speak into your life? Would you be able to hear from them right now?
It'd be very hard.
Yeah.
Man,
Why? Tell me why.
You're looking at them through a lens of knowing that they're doing something that they know is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No, and not necessarily in terms of breaking the law or anything, but just that they know right from wrong. And then they are still choosing
Yeah.
the wrong.
Yeah.
And so you look at that and somebody that's not practicing what they preach, and it's very hard to learn a lesson from it.
Yeah. So Clay and I touched on this we kind of just passed over it almost, on the last episode. And he had mentioned that, I have a hard time with obese pastors, preaching, just because to me, you're dealing with unrepentant sin, like it's something that we know to be wrong, but we're still, freely just kind of partaking in something. You're not making an effort to change it. Like, I can deal if you're making an effort to change. I can work with that. But if you're just kind of blatantly accepting, like, hey, look, this is just a sin that I deal with, and that's okay. I made the comment, if I was having an affair and I joked about that from the pulpit, everybody would lose their mind. But I make a joke about, obesity and that being all right, and everybody seems to be fine with it somehow. And so that's just a major tipping point for me. And Clay's is faithfulness in pastors. If you're not going to be faithful, it's hard for him to hear. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that and just kind of tighten those down. It's not a Andrew's personal values. I think everybody should work out and everybody needs to be dieting all the time. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about unrepentant sin. I don't think anybody should be in any state of sin that they're not actively trying to get out of.
And I think we have the unique perspective where we see it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Where me and you share a lot of the same ideologies as far as working out goes, as far as diet goes.
Sure.
The knowledge is there. But whenever somebody may come into the office and both of us are sitting there, they'll turn to you before they turn to me on advice for working out.
Sure.
And one of those reasons is because that's something that you take a lot more serious in your life. Mm-hmm. And you're a lot more disciplined in it than I am.
Sure.
And so we see that example firsthand.
Yeah.
Where it makes a difference. I could tell somebody the same thing that you're telling them, but because of your disciplined action in it and how meaningful it is in your life, they'll much rather go to you than they would somebody else.
Sure.
But then if they got questions about how to not drink anymore and how to live a new life in Christ and stuff, they're going to come to you. Yep. Because they don't know Andrew in that way, yep. Because he wasn't from here and it was longer ago or whatever. And that's something that you speak a lot about, or they're going to come for marriage advice and we're in the room. Most of the time they're going to come to me. Is it that my marriage is better than anybody else's? It's just we've spoke a lot about that, and they see that lived out a little bit more, front and center, mm-hmm. And those kind of things. So where, point that you're making is your strong points people are going to be drawn to, but your weak points over here that people know they're going to try to shy away from.
Yeah. Yep. And one of the things that I just want to encourage everybody in is like when you find yourself in that situation, because we're all married, right? And so if we sit in a room and somebody comes in and it's me, Ryan, and Clay, we're the only ones in the room. They come in the room and they say, hey, look, man, I need some marriage advice. And I watch them turn away from me, pass over Ryan, and look at Clay. And they start asking Clay this direct question. So I've got two opportunities. I can either be offended that they didn't ask me, or I can get out a notepad and learn from what's happening. And too many people choose to be offended for whatever reason, right. Like any reason that they can find. I guess, I don't know, I think everybody's looking for justification of why they do
A
things.
lot of that just has to do with longevity. A lot of the reason why people are going to look to me on that question is because I've been married longer than anybody else. A lot of the reason why people are going to ask you about that is because you've been in tip-top shape for a long time,
Sure.
And, with your MMA career and different things like that, even going back to high school and stuff. And so a lot of that just is longevity. I like to learn from everybody, but it's a lot easier to learn from people that are walking this thing out.
Sure, absolutely.
Experience has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
In any aspect of it. You mainly are going to be drawn towards the teacher, not the student.
Yeah.
And that, that's something to be said there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there as far as just to make a parallel here, and I'll just continue to use fitness because that's the one that kind of got tossed my direction of the three of us. The main thing that I did right in fitness is I never let myself go. Even in the period of my life where I was the least active, I never let myself cross that line to where it became very difficult to get back. That's the main difference between me and most people, is that most people had a point in time in their life where they ran into that same wall and they let themselves get on the other side of it, and then it's very hard to get back. The same can be said in marriage. The same can be said in business. The same can be said in your relationship with Christ. The people that are the most effective are the ones that bump into that wall and say, nope, I'm not doing it, not crossing the line. And man, I'd have loved to, a lot of people are like, man, you got such a, not for me specifically, but they'll be talking to somebody that's got like this wild testimony. And like, man, that's so cool. You got a wild testimony like that, man. That's powerful. It's like, I'm sure the person would have rather, just had a strong relationship with Jesus the whole time. And,
Well, that's the reason why we say marriage isn't that hard for us.
Yeah.
Because we've never let it go.
Yeah, just don't cross over the line.
Whereas fitness is more difficult for me because I did.
Sure.
And so because I did let it go and didn't put it at the forefront, then it has been more difficult and more of a struggle. Whereas the marriage, we've always kept it maintained. And because of that, it isn't difficult.
Yeah.
Same way with sobriety or the same way with walking this Christian life out. We've just been doing it, went back and forth and, those kind of things. And so it's, just been easy to maintain and keep moving forward. Whereas for other people, it's a struggle. So I think that's great advice. We hadn't ever really talked about it that way. But if you don't let yourself go in a certain area, then it's a lot easier to maintain it and get better.
Yeah.
Well, it becomes a new standard.
Yes.
I mean, we were talking about that yesterday in some of our groups about how competition is so healthy. You look at some of the iconic brands out there today, iPhone, Samsung. At one point in time, they both started way down here. And then one came out with a new version and the other topped them and topped them and topped them. And now one of them may be better than the other. I really don't know.
iPhone.
But the point of it being is they're no longer down here.
Yeah.
One may be better than the other, but
They're way up there. Yeah.
There you go.
so-
That's a good point.
the new standard that you set in your life, if that new
That's good.
standard becomes the baseline, like what you're talking about with your marriage or with working out and fitness and stuff, then it's something that you will not let go. And that becomes your new low, so to speak. And then you only continue to move up from there.
I don't know how I feel about it, but when you started to make the comparisons, like I didn't know what companies you were going to choose. I knew you were going to choose some. My first thought was CVS Walgreens. Yeah, the cross street rivalry.
Mine was going to be Nike and Reebok.
Yeah.
I guess it's because you don't see many CVS Walgreens. It's just not in my forte.
They're right across from each other, and it's like, man, what a campaign.
Is that AutoZone and O'Reilly's? It's
Yeah,
the same way.
yeah,
And
they're
I've heard
real
rumors
close.
of why that's right, but I had never looked to see if it was true.
Yeah, it's wild though, but it's if you're driving down the road and it starts to storm on you, a hard rain, you might have to slow down to stay safe. And it's gonna slow you down a little bit for sure. You're not gonna get where you're going quite the speed that you intended. But if you go off the road, you got a whole nother booger on your hands. And so it's one thing to slow down until the storm passes. It's a whole nother thing to lose control of that sucker and try to get yourself back together. And that's ultimately, what we're looking at. And I heard a guy say yesterday, it was the funniest little saying, but he said, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. And man, I just thought that was brilliant, because people get so puffed up by knowledge. Man, I know all this stuff. They don't have the wisdom to utilize it, and not crossing those boundaries. That's wisdom. It's not knowledge. That's wisdom. And so, hey, on a lighter note, I do have a get to know you segment question, and I want to ask you first, Ryan. And Ryan has no idea what I'm about to ask him, so this would be the first. This would be the first time that he's heard this. Clay too, actually. Yeah, Clay too, actually. But
I proposed a question, and he decided not to go with it. So.
Yeah, man. He wanted to know on a scale of 1 to 10 how handsome Ryan thought I was. I think that we can all agree he was going to say 7. And see, and so let's say money was no object in your life. Was it? You don't have to work. You just everything's taken care of for you. You still live where you live. You're not moving away. You still live in, where do you live?
Fisk Union.
Oh my gosh. We'll pretend that's a real place.
Did we get Ryan so that we could get another demographic of people?
7 extra viewers.
We get 7 extra viewers in that area, or potential 7 viewers.
So you still live in that. You still live in Mangum, and same place, right? Mangum Oak Grove.
Not according to them.
You still live in Fisk Union, but you just don't have to work anymore. Your stuff's taken care of. What would your schedule look like? You get to make your own schedule. You don't have to go to work. What would you do with your time?
Man, you'd be surprised. I actually give this question a lot more thought.
Praise God. Praise God.
Because there's a lot of variables in my schedule already that play a huge factor in what I do.
Yeah.
It takes me about an hour and a half to get to work every morning. In the afternoons, it takes me about an hour and a half to get home. There are a lot of things that I could do. Yeah, I take the same transportation.
It's the traffic.
Yeah.
He drives to work and takes a bicycle back.
Traffic in Crowell is getting for me.
Yeah.
Especially during fishing season.
Yep.
But no. So, because that's the number one thing that people always ask me is, why do you drive so far? Why don't you either A, move closer, or B, find something else to do? I love what I do. And the commute to where I'm going, it has no effect on what I do whatsoever. So if money wasn't an option, I can genuinely say that I would continue to come to Fresh Start as long as it's open. I would continue to come every single morning to Winsboro, Louisiana, and I'd show up at Fresh Start to be able to serve in that ministry. After that,
from what window of time we talking?
I'm not changing my schedule. I like my schedule. I'd come. I usually leave this time of year. I'm leaving right at about the time the sun comes up. So I'd get there about 7:00, stay till about 3. My afternoons may look a little different. I do have other jobs that I take care of with the 5th District Drug Court and stuff like that. Not really sure if I'd still be doing that, because I think for their benefit, they're looking for somebody a little more concrete, a more concrete schedule. That might change a little bit. I think I would want to incorporate some kind of sport or some kind of physical engagement in there.
What you got in mind? Throw me something. Not a lot of ice around here.
No
hockey.
Not. Man, I did CrossFit for about 6 months a year ago, and I really enjoyed that. That was fun because there's a competitiveness about CrossFit.
Sure.
And I really think as long as it was something competitive, that I'd want to do it.
Okay.
Whether it be getting into some kind of mixed martial arts again. I do have a little bit of background in like Shotokan karate, kickboxing and stuff like that. Boxing's something that I'd like to do. And just to give me that competitive aspect of my life again.
Sure.
Because I really don't. That's the one thing that's missing. is there's just not a whole lot of sports or intramural sports, adult leagues and stuff. You know, from where I came from, it was a little bigger area
Sure.
with more people. And you had adult beach volleyball leagues, which, I mean, that was really fun.
Yeah.
Adult softball leagues, adult dodgeball leagues. I mean, just stuff that you can go be a part of. I'm dead serious, man.
Unfortunately, I believe him.
Matter of fact, it wasn't really a league, but we had a probably about a solid 40 group of people who really got big into spike ball.
Spike ball is a lot of fun.
We'd meet twice a week and play spike ball. You know, just something like that. At least once or twice a week, I'd want to go and play some kind of sport just to get back into that kind of athletic camaraderie, so to speak. And then after that, I'd make sure that I want to spend more time with my family in whatever kind of capacity it may be.
Yeah.
You know, my stepson we share custody with his dad, and so I get to see him half the week. I want to make sure I take advantage of that time. You know, and I've gotten to do that. He's getting really big into baseball. And so I've actually been asked to help coach a team, and I get to help him practice and help be there for him. And that's something that we have in common. You know, he's very close with his dad. He has a great dad. And so, like, the way he was brought up and raised, he's all about farming. And there ain't nothing that you can tell him any different than that.
You should try to get a job for Kyle, working for Kyle.
That might actually be an option.
Yeah.
And so this is an area where me and him can have that relationship, is sports. And so that's been really fun. That's something I didn't know I was missing until I started doing it. And so that's been really fun to do. But as far as my daily schedule goes, there ain't a whole lot that would change. It truly wouldn't. So,
Yeah. It's solid. I like it. Clay, what about you, man? What?
Mine's the same. I don't do it for money anyhow, you know. So, you know, at this point in my life, I don't know that anything would change. You know, I feel like I don't want to work as hard as I do now forever. So I've tried to set myself up for that. But I don't have to work as hard as I do now. And I choose to. And so because I choose to, I don't think that I would change it. You know, I don't, not as of now.
Mine would change drastically.
You have 4 young kids.
Yeah.
Anybody in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. So I would probably still train fighters as early as I do now, because my kids are still asleep. And I try to, in my current schedule, do as much as I can do while my kids aren't available as possible. And so I would still go train people before my kids are awake, and I would be back home when they get up. And we would spend the breakfast portion of the day just kind of hanging out, you know, probably about an hour and a half window doing that, just getting to spend time with Courtney and the kids. Then I would leave, and I would go lift weights, and I would run. It'd take about 3 hours, not to necessarily do it. It'd take about 2 hours to do what I wanted to do, but between the travel and some of the conversation, because I would use that time to be intentional with people. So I would have people with me. I wouldn't be running alone, wouldn't be lifting alone. The reason I would leave in general is because my children are still in school. My wife schools them. It'd be hard for her to do that with me sitting around, because the kids want to play and they want to talk and then, you know, and they want to do stuff. And so Courtney does a great job with them. So I'd take that window and let her school them for about 3 hours before I come back. And I'd probably help round out, you know, the rest of that when we got to the house. Either that or take care of some of the house stuff while she's finishing that up. But then at that point in the day, man, we would go do something together as a family, kind of like you alluded to, just some sort of sport, something we could enjoy together. And then, you know, they like to do all kinds of stuff. But then for sure, one day a week, I'd take the entire day to take Courtney somewhere and go do something. Courtney likes to do a lot of stuff like that too, but that's probably the hardest thing for me, having a bunch of kids, and also with her being home, because I do have to work more because she's home, which is a decision that I'm happy we made. But if I didn't have to work more, I would definitely take more time just to spend with her, because that's the thing that's probably lacking most in all of the relationships. It's just that one-on-one time with her and I.
How much time would you say on average a week that y'all get to spend one-on-one like that?
Dude, it's a very minimal amount. If it wasn't for the lap baby, it would be more, but he's still very needy. He's 6 months old, and so it's hard to get him down even where we can hang out at the house when it's just her and I. We put our kids to bed pretty early, and so our kids are in their own beds by 8 o'clock, and so usually from 8 to 10, Courtney and I just kind of hang out. But even that's just not the kind of time I'm talking about. You know what I mean? I'm trying to find time outside of that. And so
remember, you do have somebody that keeps asking you to drop the kids off, who has successfully raised 3 wonderful kids that lives on the way to Monroe.
yeah, the problem with that is, I think we'd be more stressed that we don't have our hands on our kids.
For sure,
it's difficult. It's difficult to do that. But probably once a month, Courtney and I will spend a whole day together, and so we'll kind of find a day where her parents are always fantastic when it comes to keeping our kids and wanting to help out, and so Donna and Richie will take the kids for the day, and Courtney and I will spend 6-7 hours fishing or something, and but yeah, not near enough.
My reason for the question, that's kind of my notepad opportunity, like what you're talking about.
Sure.
Because me and Morgan do plan on having another kid.
Yeah.
And so just something to look forward to.
Yeah, put your kids to bed early. Don't let your kids stay up past 8. There's no reason for them to. They'll sleep through the night, I promise you. And to have that window of time where her and I can just talk and hang out and laugh, and it's really good for us. And but I'd like more, and I think she would too. Yep. So that'd be the biggest thing for me, man.
Hey, on that topic, real quick, I'll just say this to new couples out there and stuff. It's kind of like Andrew was talking about. Don't let yourself get away.
Mm-hmm.
Always, if that's something that you think is important, always make a way for it, even when it's hard.
Yep.
We had 2 children 14 months apart. It was difficult. We had a third child that liked to sleep in our bed, and we had to be intentional on it. And we were. And because we never let it get out of hand, it was never out of hand. But I've ministered to so many couples that when their kids were young, that they did not spend the quality time with each other the way that they should have. And they kept saying, well, when the kids get older, we will. And when they get older, we will. And next thing you know, they don't even want to later on because they've grown apart.
That's right.
And so just all you young couples out there, even when it's difficult, you still do it.
It's good.
It's difficult.
What means something that, and I've been married the least amount of time out of us 3. And something I've always taken that you said, and this was years and years ago, was you don't have to let the honeymoon phase die out. And me and my wife, Morgan, we make sure that we're very intentional with that.
Good.
Now, it's something I will say we have a lot more opportunity to, because like I said, at this point in time, we have Carter every other day. So that time is there.
Yeah.
I know it may not be like that for every couple.
Sure.
Also, one thing I want to say about both of y'all, as far as you say your schedule would change drastically. You say yours wouldn't. But one thing that I do know about both of y'all, since the time I've known y'all, is y'all never turn down the opportunity to help somebody.
Nah.
So as far as your days went or your schedule went, I can guarantee that if somebody called and said, hey, can you help with fill in the blank?
Yeah.
That part of your day probably wouldn't change.
Yeah, I even in my schedule today, which is spelled out pretty strictly, I maintain an unbelievable amount of flexibility for those things.
Yep.
And
But
you have to.
It is, and you have to. But we do minister to a lot of different people. but it's because we put ourselves in those situations. Now, you go and spend just the majority of the time with your family or whatever, you're not going to get called on as much as what we get called on now. Because we are around people all the time and intentional and doing those things. So, a lot of the reason why we're busy is because we allow ourselves to be that way.
Yeah.
We're not secluded.
The fear of asking somebody how their day's going. Because if you ask them that question, now you have to commit.
Yeah.
Because what if they don't give you the answer, oh, it's good? What if they meet you with man, I'm actually dealing with some stuff today.
Yeah.
Well, now you're committed.
Yeah. Pull up a chair.
Yep. And that's like,
We talked about that a few weeks ago on here.
Yeah. We sure did. Yeah. No, and that's good, man. That's, in my day, the part, because you also want to lean into your strengths. That's the other thing. And my strength is in one-on-one relationship building. It's just what I'm best at. Some people are great with groups. I'm not. I'm not bad with groups, but I'm not near as good with a group as I am with an individual. And so to take people with me while I'm lifting, with me while I'm working out, so I can pour into their physical health, which pours into their family, which gives us 2 hours a day to hang out and spend time. I'm going to be intimately involved with that person's family and vice versa. And so and if I don't want to talk about anybody individually, but if you look at my ministry in the last 8 years, you don't think tons of people, but there are people that are coming to your mind right now. Individuals who've been impacted in a massive way and have made some massive swings. And that's just where I feel God calls me is to individuals and their families. And so, yeah, that's why I kind of would tailor it that way, where I think that y'all are way more effective than I am with large groups of people. Not that you're not effective with the individual. It's just that's my bread and butter for sure.
I give it a say.
Yep. So this week's episode, man, having Ryan on, and Ryan is I don't want to say an expert because I don't know that I'd qualify any of us as experts in anything. Just because that's not as humble as I like for us to sound. But I would say that Ryan is extremely intelligent. He's been through school. He's worked really hard to get into the positions that he's gotten himself into. But he's also got a lot of experience in life that has tremendous amount of value. And there was a whole plethora of topics that I think would have been excellent for us to discuss today. But over the years of you and I spending time together, there was one particular thing that stuck out in my mind more so than others because I think that it is a common thing for people, and I know for sure that you have a ton of insight on it, and that is on learning to accept forgiveness. When people go through different stages of life or difficulties in life, there's always 3 pillars of forgiveness. There's accepting forgiveness from other people, accepting forgiveness from yourself, and accepting the forgiveness from the Lord. And those can be individually or altogether a massive roadblock in being able to move forward at all. And I know that, through the years of you and I talking, and then, you coming out on the other side of these things, and we've just had some really jam up conversations about it. And that was a conversation that I think I'd really like the people to hear some of. And so what are your opening thoughts, just kind of talking about accepting forgiveness or what that looks like?
Man, something I've learned, probably the most important thing I've learned about accepting forgiveness is that it is one of the epitomes of pridefulness. That was something that I had to come to terms with. I never thought of comparing or including pridefulness with accepting forgiveness. But like those 3 pillars that you're talking about, to me, they all feed off of one another. And my accepting forgiveness issues, I say, would come with wanting to be the best that I can be. And that's something that's always been a staple in my life. I can say even way before I even believed that there was a God. I don't think I could ever categorize myself as an agnostic or an atheist or anything like that, but there was easily a point in time growing up where we didn't go to church. I didn't really know anything about God. The society I grew up in, the community was very heavily Catholic. So I heard a lot about God. Don't think I ever didn't think he was real. But there was some kind of wall there as far as he doesn't pertain to me. And so always wanting to strive to be the best or to be the best that I could be at a certain thing has always been there. So forgiveness of myself would come to terms with that. If I made a mistake or if I stumbled or fell, well, yes, I'd get upset with myself because I believed I could do better. Believed I should have did better because I knew better. And, I'm getting upset with myself now. So now I'm getting down on myself. Well, that ideology would then carry over into accepting forgiveness from other people, because you may want to forgive me, but I understand that I should have did better, and that's not an excuse for me. So until I do better, you shouldn't want to forgive me. So even though you want to forgive me, I don't deserve the forgiveness until I do better. And then that will all circle back around to God's forgiveness, where understanding that I still fell short. So because I fell short, I don't deserve the forgiveness from him. So the pridefulness aspect of it comes in where I had to understand to stop looking at my scale of things or stop living life on my terms and let my life be defined by God's truths. So it didn't matter if I believed that I was worthy of it or that I believed I deserved it. It was a matter of, this is what God has done. And I think that you want to talk about the success that I've had in my life and where I've come from to where I'm at now. That one aspect right there has carried over into more parts of my life than anything else. Coming to the realization that I may think things and things may seem a certain way, but those two things do not equal what God says. And so what are you going to base your actions on, or what are you going to base your core beliefs on? What you think you deserve, or what God says?
Yeah.
And so coming to that realization, like I said, transformed not only the accept and forgiveness part of my life, but everything. Because then I was able to start walking through a foundation of faith rather than through a foundation of my own thinking. I wish I could put that a better way, but I can't really think of a better way to put it. But it transformed my whole thought process from going strictly from, well, this seems like it's right, this could be right, feels like it should be right, to, no, this doesn't line up with what God says. So that means it's not right.
Yeah.
And I did, man, it wasn't up until probably about 4 years ago where I would text my mom, because, we see clients in all kinds of different perspectives.
Yeah.
Right? And something may happen that would trigger a thought of something I did back in the day. Like I can remember a time, just easy, where my driver's license was suspended. It was the first year that my mom was retired. She just retired from work. My driver's license was suspended. I didn't have a vehicle. So she was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to bring me to work and pick me up from work in the afternoon. And there were some days where I was very ungrateful for that. And I may make a big deal or talk mean or talk down to her because she picked me up. We got off of work at 3 and she might have picked me up at 3:30. And that just wasn't acceptable to me, And so like something like this would come to my mind and I'm like, man, I can't believe that I had the audacity to get mad. And so I'd text her and I'd be like, hey, I just want to say, look, I love you. I'm sorry for talking to you the way that I did back then. You didn't deserve that. You raised me so good. And you got to know my mom. She's very ditzy. And it finally got to the point where my mom she would text me back and just say, "Shut up, Ryan, I love you." Because she really didn't know what I was talking about. Like, that is not even in her mind anymore. And it didn't matter to her. And God really used the relationship I had with my parents to show me what unconditional love was, even whenever I didn't have any idea of what unconditional love looked like from God's point of view, where he used them to show me, okay, well, this is what this looks like. And then from getting to know him at a deeper level, I got to understand, okay, well, actually what my parents were doing, that was of God.
Yeah.
That wasn't of my parents. That was of God and something that God had instilled in them.
That's good.
And so it came full circle. But the thing that it did in my life as far as just transforming it is something that can't be really justified in any other way.
Yeah.
It did the most.
I'm not going to lie to you. It's very hard to picture Ryan talking ugly to his mom.
Being defiant.
I can't even. Well, yeah. I mean, I've been around Ryan on the good side of Ryan, and so I literally can't even fathom a version of reality where you're that way. And so, how cool? How cool is that? But when you're not accepting forgiveness, what state did it leave you in?
Depression. I dealt heavily with depression because, man, it would just create avenues where you're not focusing on who God says you are or the definition that God has given you in life, and now you're allowing for all these other things to creep in and try to define you on their own. One thing that the Holy Spirit really taught me on when I was in school was understanding that when I was under the influence of something, that those actions were not of me. It was of the influence. Because, we can understand the potential that God has given us when he created us.
Sure.
And we can understand who our creator is. And being that we know who our creator is, we know that we're created in his image and likeness. Well, now we can understand the potential that we have on the inside of us. And we can understand what we were created and designed to do. So anything outside of that is of a different influence. And so when it came to forgiving myself, because I did, man, I was not proud of a lot of things I had done in my past. And it was very hard for me to get over it. And God taught me through that look, that was something of this world that you were under. That was not my spirit. That was not you living out your purpose. That was you being under the influence of something else.
Yeah.
So can you really be unforgiving of something that wasn't you? And getting that understanding really lightened the load for me of understanding, okay, actually I can forgive myself because that wasn't me. That's not who God created me to be.
That's good.
That's not the spirit that God gave me. You know what I mean?
And that's very good. Understanding who you are and letting that be what's true about you, and that be the reality of who you are, rather than the potential for you to be influenced by something on the outside. And now you've convinced yourself that that's you. And man, I tell you one thing, you were talking about unforgiveness earlier and what it looks like versus what it really is. And a lot of people have this picture in their mind that when they refuse to accept other people's forgiveness, that somehow that's them being meek or them being humble because they're just putting themselves in a slow place. But the reality is the other side of unforgiveness, the other side of that coin is not meekness or humility. It's self-centeredness and arrogance, because of exactly what you said. You're saying, all right, Clay, you said that you forgive me, but I don't think you do. And what I think is more important than what you think. And God, I know that you said that you forgive me, but I don't think you do. And what I think is more important than what you think. And it's like, that's the most arrogant position one could possibly take. But we paint it like it's this meek, like, oh man, I'm not worthy. And it's like, dude, you're doing something way different than saying you're not worthy. You are saying you're not worthy, but you're also saying that what I'm saying isn't worth anything.
And I can give you the thought that I had behind that, and what the Holy Spirit revealed to me was, by me not accepting God's forgiveness of me and the penalty that Jesus died for on the cross, was me in essence saying, yeah, I know what my Lord and Savior did, but it wasn't enough to cover my sins.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough to make up for all the bad that I did.
Yeah.
And that was something that really struck me in my core of, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like
that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Thing that what God has done, the plan that he carried out in what Jesus went through to forgive me of my sins wasn't enough. That there's still more that Ryan Kincaid has to do.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, as far as pride goes, that was very shocking for me to come to realization.
You don't want to get into that. Clay, what are your thoughts on it, man?
Now, I think that forgiving yourself is one of the biggest things that you can do. We run into people all the time that, and we've said this on here before, but, dealing with drug addicts, people with substance use issues, they're real keen on forgiving other people. They have a hard time forgiving themselves, and then they have a hard time accepting forgiveness. And so, you have those, different areas to where, you have a hard time forgiving others, you have a hard time forgiving yourself, and you have a hard time accepting forgiveness. And I think we see real clear in the Bible that we need to be able to do all of those things. We need to be able to forgive other people that have wronged us. We need to be able to forgive ourselves for things that we've done in the past. And we also need to be able to accept other people's forgiveness and move on, because God's plan is reconciliation. That's what he wants. He wants people to be reconciled back to him and back to each other. So not just so that we can sit there, but so we can move forward. But so many times we see people not moving forward in life because they don't have this forgiveness thing down pat. And because they don't have it, it's kind of like a baseline. We see that righteousness, understanding who you are in Christ, is a baseline. That's a foundational issue. Well, guess what? Forgiveness is a foundational issue too. If we can't forgive people, accept forgiveness, and forgive ourselves, then we can't move on to maturity. Those are baseline foundational things that we had to learn. I learned many years ago that there's a higher road than forgiveness. People say, well, you got to be able to forgive. You got to be able to forgive, and all those kind of things. And that's true. But a higher road than forgiveness is, I never held it against you anyhow. So because I never held it against myself or held it against you anyhow, then I don't have to forgive you or myself. Well, you can't get to that higher road to forgiveness unless we get good at this part. We have to get good at forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, and accepting forgiveness, so that not so we can stay there. That's just a baseline foundation issue. But the deeper revelation is that, hey, we're not even holding against anybody anyhow.
Yeah.
But we can't get to the deeper things in life if we don't take care of the base. We can't get to being transformed into the image of God if we can't see ourselves as righteous and holy. That, righteousness is a baseline. Identity is a baseline. Forgiveness is a baseline. We have to be able to get good at those things so that we can move to higher levels.
Yep. And what I was going to say and add on to that, you mentioned reconciliation. When it comes to unforgiveness and not being able to forgive yourself or forgiving other people, you put yourself in a box. And so just to kind of give an example of it, if I don't forgive myself, then there's no way that I will feel worthy of preaching the gospel or trying to help people understand what God's reconciliation is for them. And so now, I've spoken on that from the other side of things, of you not forgiving somebody else, where it handcuffs you. And let's say you hold unforgiveness towards that person for something they did for you. Well, you're going to have a hard time reaching anybody with the gospel that has committed a similar act.
Sure.
because of that unforgiveness that you hold. Well, same goes for unforgiveness itself. If I don't forgive myself, or if I think I'm not good enough or worthy enough or whatever this may be, then I'm never going to think that I can be at a point where I can be used to spread the gospel or used to spread God's love.
Well, let's tie it all together. Let's go back to the very beginning of this show when we talked about how when somebody is in, continuous sin and it's hard to receive from, and let's tie it into this. Let's say that you are that person that used to have marriage trouble or trouble in your marriage and stuff, and but now you're not having that trouble anymore or whatever. Well, let's say that I'm a young person that saw, hey, he had marriage trouble in his life like I did, but he doesn't have that anymore. So now I need to go and learn from him. All right. So I'm watching you and you've turned from that and you're walking away from that on the outside. But now I want to learn from you. If you haven't forgiven yourself on the inside, then even though you've turned away from that, you don't feel worthy to speak into my life. Yeah. So now you're going to say, no, Clay, look, man, you don't want marriage advice from me. Yep. Even though you're living a good marriage life because you got this secret hang up of that you hadn't forgiven yourself in the past, then you don't feel good enough about it to now pass it on to me. And that goes along with what you're saying.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't think that way.
Right.
There's no way I could possibly do it. That means that anybody that came through the center that tried to come and get advice from me about how to do it, I'd say, no, man, I've had too many screw-ups in my life. You need to go find somebody that hasn't screwed up, and good luck finding somebody that hasn't screwed up.
Now, me and like 3 other people.
I was just about to say, you maybe the owner of Kyle and Ely Farms.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, man, there's some more stuff that I really wanted to ask you about, but we have done an excellent job of talking.
We're out of time.
Yeah, of talking about what we did. And so
I think it was 15 minutes.
I think that what we're gonna do is let Ryan be the first recurring guest.
Okay.
Well, he'll be the first guest that we bring back.
So you have more questions than we gave answers to.
I've got some other things that I'd really like. I'll tell you what it is. He's the first person we've ever had on here from Fresh Start that actually went through and graduated the program. Oh, okay. And I would love to talk about the reality of the transition from Fresh Start back into the world.
Wait, hold on. Aria didn't go through Fresh Start?
No. Yeah. It's a common misconception. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Terrible too.
And so, man, I'd like to talk about his transition from Fresh Start back into, I don't want to say the real world, but kind of back. We call it a bubble, the Fresh Start bubble. So into the bubble and then back out of the bubble, because not just people from Fresh Start, but anybody who's been through any form of addiction or long-standing sin and coming out of it is going to be able to relate to that. And I want to talk about some of the things that were really good about that and some of the things that were really difficult about that.
Some challenges.
And just get honest about them. And because I think the other thing it's going to do is going to give me and you the opportunity to learn some things that we could do more effectively or other people that are listening that could help with some of these, transitional things.
Because we tell everybody that the main thing is you got to keep doing the things that you're doing now and stay connected. Mm-hmm. But not everybody does that.
Yeah.
So how did he continue to do those things, and how did he continue to stay connected?
Well, but also, some of the things that they're doing are with people that are outside of here. And so if there's not opportunity to continue doing those things, that's hard too. And so, I'd like to have you back on soon. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what works with your schedule, and we'll get you back as quick as we can.
Yeah, I'll get with my boss and see if...
So maybe next Friday while we're playing golf, you can do Jesus cartoon
by myself. There's a lot of responsibility.
Be honest, there's no way you'd be able to hook this up.
You're a lot better golf player.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I don't have anything else. Y'all got anything?
Good.
Man. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah. Glad you're here, man. Love you guys.